Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 9th of September. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined by Jonny McFarlane and Joshua Barrie to talk all things Rangers. And despite we're still being in the international break, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and there is some Rangers news to get our teeth stuck into. The first one being Yannis Hagi. Me and you, Joshua, spoke about this yesterday, of course. Had concerned, of course, because Yannis tested positive for coronavirus. There was a feeling that he could be out for a considerable period of time because of the fact that he was in North Macedonia with the Romanian international team. A statement from the Romanian FA on the matter at the time said Yannis complained of slight headaches in the national team's camp in Skopje. He performed a quick test under the coordination of the medical staff of the national team, and the result is positive. The player immediately went into isolation. To date, on the occasion of this action, the national team, Yannis has performed 5 COVID tests, all with a negative result. Now, it was feared that because he was in North Macedonia, he would have to isolate for pretty much 20 days or what have you. Now, it doesn't appear that that will be the case. Some reports suggesting he could be back for next week. Jonny, what's your take on this? Of course, we wish Yannis well for a start because it's a debilitating illness, but it'll be good news if we can get him back sooner rather than this nightmare scenario of missing pretty much the remainder of the month.
Yeah, this just sums up the ridiculous nature of international football during a pandemic. The clubs pay these players a fortune to perform for them, and they go away and are put in a situation where they're open to this kind of thing. It's just such a difficult situation because you could manage all your protocols perfectly, send a bunch of players away on international duty, and you just don't know how each FA is going to attack the situation. It makes it really difficult and puts a lot of obstacles in your way potentially for big games. And Yannis Hagi, he's not a first starter in every game, but he's a first starter in quite a lot of games where you need his kind of guile and ingenuity in that number 10 position. So listen, I think it's good news that it's not going to be the 20 days, because you look at that and you think, well, number one, if he's out for 20 days, he's going to need a period of recuperation in terms of getting his fitness back to a level where it gives you that match sharpness. So it would almost need to be a mini pre-season if you were out that long, even though obviously be given exercises and things like that to keep him going. So if it's cut down to 10 days, then it's more doable. You've got the hope that you can bring him back for the Lyon game. But even then, after 10 days out, you start to say to yourself, well, is he going to be fit enough for that? Or would you have to stick him on the bench for that game at best? There's a lot of questions. But I think for me, it's another one where you go, this damned international break from a Rangers point of view. And you just have to hope that obviously he could. I don't think he's showing many symptoms. I think I read somewhere saying that he was fine, which is good.
Yeah.
So you just have to hope that he's recovered as quickly as possible.
Yeah, a good morning to Direction Holmes, who joins us this morning. Hi, good to have your company. Remember, if you've got any questions, folks, just fire them into us and we'll answer them as best we can. Joshua, this thing on Hagi, like Jonny said, I've got a piece on the website of course, what I feel about these international breaks. It's so frustrating to see a player who's been in such good form this season going over with a team that isn't Rangers and coming back later than planned, and of course picking up an illness that wasn't planned as well. It's a frustrating one, isn't it?
Yeah, and I didn't know until yesterday that there was an international break in November, which you bear the bad news with me too. But I mean, if Hagi had to isolate for 20 days, he'd effectively have had to isolate until the next international break by the time, as Jonny says, he's up to fitness, really. Because it's, nearly midway through October, start of October, the next one. So you look at that and you think, I mean, I think Jonny's right in the sense that he's not necessarily always a starter, but he's such a good option, and especially playing in that number 10 role, and his ability to switch play and to pick in little pockets. He's a different player from Aribo when Aribo does that, I think. And I think what Hagi does actually is, although he's a slow player, I think he's probably got a little bit quicker, but he's not someone that's going to win beat many players in a sprint. He speeds the play up quite a lot, I think, with the way that he switches the ball. And I think often if Rangers get the ball when they're not at their best, if they get the ball with a Kent or an Aribo, sometimes those two can be guilty of slowing the game down a little bit. So I think Hagi just gives you a complete other option, and he loves European nights, doesn't he? Just wish him all the best, and hopefully he'll be back soon, because he has had a start to the season, and Gerrard said as much with him getting kicked off the pitch against Livingston, and they're missing a couple of games after that. So hopefully he'll come back with a bit between his teeth, not beneath, between his teeth, and we'll see the ramifications of that.
Yeah, Callum Milligan's got in touch. Hi, Callum. He says, we need Hagi at the club. If he was injured for 20 days, that's a massive blow. Even though we have a lot of players like Bacuna, Davis, Kamara and Lundstrom, we need every single player. Jonny, as Hagi is missing, it gives an opportunity for the likes of Bacuna, even the likes of Lundstrom, to try and stake a claim, doesn't it? That's such the strength of the squad.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rangers in midfield are really pretty strong. We don't know how good Juninho Bacuna is, but if you read the Rangers review, and you can see that we've got articles there going deep into what he's given in the past and why he might fit Rangers, he does look an exciting talent and a player who could slot in and really add something, because he's got a rich and varied skill set, and he's clearly a player who hasn't performed to his abilities while he's been at Huddersfield, who are the kind of team that it's difficult for a creative player to really go in and shine, to be honest. So I'm really, really excited to see what he can bring. And John Lundstrom has just got to get the head down and work his backside off to get into the mode of playing that Rangers operate with. But I've also seen a bit from John Lundstrom already that I think, yes, I can see what he's going to bring. I can see when it comes together, if it comes together, why he'll be a terrific player, because he does have that physical unit, physical specimen element to his game. Not only has he got an incredible engine, but he's so powerful. He can't be knocked off the ball. He can take people out of the game by knocking them off the ball and winning the ball back. He's got that kind of Premier League unit sense to him that I think Rangers have missed, and certainly in some Europa League games. So you hope that these players can come in, learn that system, and start to deliver. And then when you've got an injury like this, or a situation like this, you don't notice it so much. And that's why this squad that Gerrard's built is going to be so important. We know midfield, though, there's a lot of cover, but it's a very, very difficult position for new players to adapt to.
Yeah, absolutely. Gordon Watson gets in touch. Hi, Gordon. Hi, guys. When are we going to be unfurling the league flag? I believe it's against Motherwell on the 19th of September, I think is the date, isn't it? So, looking forward to that one. Hugh gets in touch. Apparently, Hagi's only 10 days isolation, which is a lot better than 20, according to the reports. Absolutely, Hugh, no doubt about it. Other player news affecting Rangers was Fil Helander. Now, there was slight concern because the reports coming out of the Sweden camp was he was training on his own. It wasn't known if he would be fit enough to play against Greece last night. He was fit enough. He played the game. Sweden lost by 2-1. Good news, Joshua, that Helander's playing, I guess. He's played a lot of games. He's played Spain, of course, as well for Sweden. Now he's played this game. A lot of games for Big Phil.
Yeah, I know. And that's the worry, because he, I think there's a reason the Rangers rotate him, and it probably is that kind of workloads. But he's in great form, and I fully expect him to start. But then it's a lunchtime kickoff, isn't it, on Saturday? So I don't know. Yes. I was going to come back to a previous point, actually, Derek, on Lundstrom. I think when Lundstrom's looked best, came off the bench against Ross County, started the move for the fourth goal, and then when he came on in the Old Firm, I thought he looked quite good. But in both those games, there's space. When Lundstrom's looked uncomfortable is when Dundee United away, home against Alishkert, when the tempo isn't good and he's tasked with coming in and there's a reason that role's so hard, and that Davis and Kamara do when they have to start moves, dictate the play, receive the ball in pressurised areas. And I don't think that's his game, and he said as much in a press conference when he was asked about it. And I think when you will see the best of him is when he is in games where it's a little bit more transitional, end to end. There's a bit more space in front of him. because there's no doubt that he's a good player. Technically speaking, you don't play in the Premiership for 2 seasons and have the season he did, 2 seasons ago, if you're not a technically good player. But what he'd really never had to do that much in the Premier League was have his fullback play as a winger and come in and dictate the play and receive the ball in these areas with the whole opposition in front of you. So I think the management team will take time to bed him into that role. I think you'll see Bakuna also will be is a player that on the ball you'll see how good he is, regardless of if teams are in front of him or if there's space, because I think he has such a varied skill set. Whether he applies it is a different question. But as Michael Beale said when he came in, look at how many players Rangers are given that platform to. Hagi's, Kent's, Aribo's, young players who need a platform at that stage of their career to go and make a career. Because Bakuna's 24 and he'll know as much as anyone. He hasn't fulfilled his potential yet, and I wouldn't say he's wasted 3-4 years of his career, but I would certainly say it hasn't gone as he'd envisioned it, lingering at the bottom of the Championship. So I think both those signings, you will start to see the fruits of them, and especially Bakuna. I think he was compared again by Beale to Kamara, and I think he could just be so effective in that midfield for Rangers, and that also maybe will, if Rangers think he can play that Kamara role, it will allow Kamara to play the 6 maybe, which will allow Stephen Davis to have a well-earned rest, because he was playing again last night, and then he'll probably play at 12 o'clock on Saturday, and the endless cycle goes on. But at one point, surely he needs to have a couple of games off, you'd hope.
Yeah, Direction Home says, I think we'll see minutes for Bakuna this weekend as he enter any form of pre-season. He's excited to see him. I think he has had a pre-season, but he's not played much games, to be honest with you. Jonny, Joshua mentions they are giving Davis a well-earned break. He's a sort of player, he's a freak of nature. He'll want to play every single game, won't he? And I can see him playing again on Saturday. He's not one of those, I don't think, that puts his hand up and says, can you leave me out, Gaffer?
No. And Davis is such an interesting one, because a lot of the guys who are really interested in the data and mine the data for examples of what's happening in the future, what we can't really see, suggest that Stephen Davis is already on a downward curve, and that last season his data wasn't as strong as the seasons before. But to me, this is the ultimate example of why, when you're applying statistics to football, you also need to marry up what the statistics say with what your eyes tell you. Because I think Stephen Davis is doing less but achieving more, because his experience and his knowledge and a lot of the intangibles come together to give us this kind of maestro in the middle of the park who defies his age. And I think that's perhaps why his stats are going down. I think there's other elements at play here with the amount he's actually running, because his reading of the game and the way the team operates. But I do think that he is going to need a little bit of a break, and Steven Gerrard will have to rescue him from himself at times. And in Glenn Kamara, you have a guy who's almost an identical player to fit in his position. I don't know what Joshua thinks about this, but for me, of all Rangers midfielders, Kamara is the one that you would put in that Davis position and feel, I just would not feel any concern about him slotting in there. So I'd actually feel more concerned about who slots in on the left than Kamara slotting in for Davis. Yeah. So I think in a way, if you can shuffle Kamara across and then have someone in on the left, for example, you've got Aribo in there on the left, to the side of Kamara, and on the right someone else. I think that's absolutely fine for games like St Johnstone. And listen, that's not disrespectful to St Johnstone, who are a good team who've caused Rangers problems last season. But I think there's going to have to be times when Davis is rested. Perhaps this weekend isn't that time, because it's a difficult venue to go to against one of Scottish football's better teams. But generally, I think that's how they should do it.
That's the Ryan Jack issue, though, isn't it? Because when has Davis been rested? The start of last season, when he actually didn't start the season in the team, when the Jack Kamara double pivot, which I was a huge fan of. But then, because the thing is, domestically, Rangers, maybe it altered slightly away from home, but you rarely see a flat midfield 3 now from Rangers. Yeah. So often it's Aribo is more advanced, sometimes even Hagi and it's more emulative of a 4-2-3-1. Sometimes at home, last season it was more of a 4-2-4 at times. It was ridiculous. But so I think it was Dunfermline. You seen, was it Kamara and Lundstrom in the midfield with Aribo ahead of them? And the thing Aribo gives is he can come in and form that three-man midfield. He's not the best defensively, but he knows the roles and the responsibility. He's that hybrid which gives Rangers the ability to then switch to a more offensive formation. So I think when Jack's back, that's the type of you'll see Steve, because I think what Jack's improved in massively, and his stats show this, is his passing metrics from the centre of the pitch. His forward passing metrics are just so much better than when he played as that role in Gerrard's first season, when it was more of a McCrory or a Koulibaly or a Jack in that number 6 role. So, and then maybe Bakuna as well is one that they see could play in that double pivot long term, because as we know, he's played in defence. I also have read a lot of Huddersfield fans saying that he doesn't track his man and he'll do something, he'll have a great game for 80 minutes and then be lazy, but he won't get away with that at Rangers. Playing for Huddersfield is just not comparable to playing for Rangers. I don't think you'd find many people that disagree with you about that. And if he's not going to track his man, I don't think that'll last for long. So I think there is more options. And also Lundstrom, I think they do maybe envision him playing in a double pivot. But again, if he's tasked with setting the tempo, that hasn't really worked so far. So maybe that's something that will have to be revisited by the coaching staff.
There's one player we're not talking about yet, and I'm interested to see where he fits in at any point, because he's not went out the door on loan or anything. Stephen Kelly, who had a great pre-season. For me, he's the ideal replacement for Stephen Davis. We've talked about him being like a mini Davis before. Where does he fit in, Jonny, and how is he going to get opportunities?
With difficulty, I would say. This is the thing at Rangers now, and we've touched on this, and it sounds a bit triumphalist, but it's just true. To get into that Rangers team now, you need to show it. You need to be showing in training, I think, that you are right bang at it.
Yeah.
And the midfield, it's so full of quality that it's going to be difficult for Stephen Kelly. Now, I'd like to see Stephen Kelly being given a chance. I think that's a great shout, rather than move Kamara across, give Stephen Kelly a chance in certain games, allow him to develop. But this is Rangers now. We're back to a situation where the club is expected to win every game without excuse. And what you really need to do as a young player is be like Nathan Patterson and come in and tear it up and prove that you're just like a new signing, rather than a kid that needs to learn on the job. That's just not going to be doable. So I suspect Stephen Kelly won't get a lot of game time. I would like to see it. I think most Rangers fans that I speak to would like to see him come in as a young player who's grown up through the system, a Rangers fan. They'd like to see him get a chance. But whether he does or not is another story. It's really up to him. He's got to prove that he has the chops for it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it certainly is. That'll do us there, chaps. You've got a great piece on the website this morning, Joshua.
Thank you. I hope it is. I mean, it's focused on Brexit and how Brexit, the end of the free movement within the EU, is changing how easy it is for clubs to recruit players. The points-based system that clubs have to put players through, effectively, that players have to qualify for to get what's called a GBE. And why that is forcing Rangers to scout different markets, or allowing them, because the playing field is now levelled. There's no much easier advantage to kind of shopping in Europe as opposed to the rest of the world. So what that means for Rangers long term. So read that over on the Rangers Review and hopefully enjoy it.
Fantastic stuff. Remember to subscribe to the Rangers Review now for only £2.99 a month and support top quality journalism covering the club you love. We'll be back tomorrow for a big preview ahead of Saturday's match against St Johnstone. But until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday.